What's up, my fellow nerds and nerdettes? Welcome back to the channel, and I got a question for you today, okay? Have you ever been playing Naruto 5e and thought to yourself, man, it'd be so cool if I could just be a little more religious, maybe a little holier, a little Halo action, just vibing up top there, or maybe a little more like demonic religion, a little, not so nice, little devil horns, you know what I'm saying? Well, that's what I found for you today. Now, for those of you that don't know, on the Naruto 5e official Discord, you can find a ton of different things, but one thing in particular is some homebrew stuff. And someone on there actually made a homebrew whole class that I think is really, really sick. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we get in, you gotta just give me just a little, tiny little, boom, you know what I'm saying? Just quick sub. We'll keep going, but just, you know how it goes. Now, hopping straight into this thing, as you can see, whoever did this did an awesome job. I mean, first off, this art is super sick. You got the Sage of the Sixth Pass, which is oh so cool. But that's what we're talking about today, is this religion nin class. Now, again, this is homebrew, so some things probably won't be perfectly balanced. They're not going to make perfect sense. But going through it real quick, nothing unique here. Normal highest known rank. You get rituals, which we'll talk about here in a second. It's kind of one of this class's main features. Proficiency bonus, obviously the same. And then features, we'll obviously talk about these. But overall, just to kind of give you an idea, Hidon, as it says, late Shippuden and Kabuto, and then even Boro or Ryuki from the manga and anime of Boruto are all pretty good kind of heavy influences of what this class is. And it talks about here that you're really going to be either supporter or debuffer, right? So you're gonna be, for the most part, more than likely Genjutsu based. You don't have to be. You can make this class work with some other stuff, but Genjutsu, I think, is where this class would shine if this is something you're wanting to use in your campaign. Now, when it comes to this guy, what do we got here? Well, class features, these are pretty much all normal, right? The usual stuff. 8 plus con mod, you get a D8, D10, so fairly balanced, leaning a little more towards chakra. Proficiencies, light and medium armor, which is always nice. Access to medium armor is huge. Simple weapons, forgery kit. You're really not going to be very weapon-based more than likely anyway. You got good wisdom and charisma, which, again, leans heavily into the whole, genjutsu concept here. And for skills, you get persuasion and deception, which is important for later. And then you get to choose two between all this stuff. And equipment, simple weapon, kunai, stack, shuriken, sakurai, all your usual stuff. So nothing too unusual there. Now, as we dig a little deeper into this bad boy, we get started on Prophet's Voice, which basically, I have read through this, so I have an idea, and I'm going to go ahead and give you some help here. You get Persuasion or Deception at a bonus. You are religious, and you can really voice your feelings, whether you believe them or not, as it kind of states here, which is kind of where the deception might come in. But that's the whole idea. And then it also talks about here, your Genjutsu can use Charisma instead of Wisdom, which, can I just say, is kind of sick, because you can build a charisma-heavy character and still have really good attacks when it comes to using genjutsus and things of that nature. Now, as we keep going here, we got Lay on Hands. Basically, this is just some free healing. Anytime you can touch somebody, you can do it, I believe, a number of times equal to your proficiency, and you just heal them for 1d8, which is nothing crazy, but it is really nice. At first level, you just get a free heal that you can toss around anytime you need it, which is always good. Getting into our next one here, we got Sacred Devotion. When you reach second level, you swear the oath that binds you to your selected deity. Basically, long story short, this is your subclass. So kind of cool for this one. You get your subclass at level 2, and a lot of them you get them at level 3. So one thing I noticed with this class is it kind of front loads a lot of the stuff and then gradually trickles it in after that. But it's kind of nice. Most campaigns don't go to like level 20 anyway, so it's kind of nice to be able to front load all of your things and get a lot of them. As you can see here, it talks about how you get it at 2nd, 6th, 10th, 15th, and 18th. So you get a lot of your bonuses. There's also a bunch of extra bonuses that you'll get in between then. Now, as we keep going here, this is where we talk about rituals. Again, we're going to get into more of this here in a second once we can actually look at the rituals. But for the most part, these are just things you can do during a short or long rest that will give you said bonuses depending on what they are. And a lot of the rituals are going to be dependent as to what subclass you choose, or in this case, what religion you follow, rather. So we'll get into that a little more in depth in a little bit. Now, this next one I actually find to be pretty funny. It's called Religious Burnout. And if I'm understanding this correctly, basically the idea is your teammates are so tired of hearing you talk about your religion that they get burned out on it and can't be affected by a certain status effect. And you get to choose either charmed or frightened. And I suppose you would probably want to be fairly thematic with it, right? It's kind of the idea. But, you know, you either are a true believer in your will of fire and you've just charmed them so much they just cannot be afflicted by that. Or maybe you're a Jashin follower and you just cannot be frightened anymore, or at least your allies cannot. So these are kind of some cool things that you can do for your teammates. Again, following that supporting role. Now as we get here to forced beliefs, basically, long story short, you kind of choose visual or auditory as a genjutsu keyword, and then anytime you use that style, the DC is increased by 1. So again, make your genjutsus a little more useful. Like I said, you can go with other ways, but genjutsu is clearly going to be pretty darn useful and kind of makes sense as a religious figurehead, right? Now, skipping ability score improvement because we all know what that does. Aura of Protection. Starting at 5th level, whenever you are a friendly creature within 10 feet must make a saving throw. They gain a bonus, blah, 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 blah. Basically, long story short, again, playing that support role. Any of your friends that are making a saving throw, they get a bonus, and they're, you know, more likely to actually make that saving throw. Crazy, right? So, again, just another support kind of AoE thing that you have in your toolbox. Now getting here into religious rite, beginning at 9th level, you've started to better understand how to get in touch with your deity, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, so the rituals, like I was talking about, how you can do them during a short or a long rest, a lot of them have specific casting times. So similar to like how something might be an action or a bonus action, and you can only do them at certain times. The same thing with these rituals, where some of them are going to be short rest rituals, in which you'd have to take a short rest or longer. Some of them are long rest rituals, in which if you're taking a short rest, you cannot perform them. On the same token, you can't perform 2 short rests and a long rest, and that kind of idea. So basically, this just allows you to start performing more rituals at a higher rate, which in turn buffing you. Now getting here into our next thing, and again, don't forget, we're getting to level 14 now, so it's going to start being a little more powerful than previously. Basically, whatever your charisma modifier is, you can just remove things from creatures that you touch. A willing creature, it does specify. And what I mean by that is ending a jutsu on oneself. So if someone has cast a genjutsu, a ninjutsu on you, just something of that form that is everlasting, you can go poof, no smile, as many times as you have a charisma modifier. So max of like 5 unless you have some special way to go over 20. But past that, being able to do that 5 times per long rest is pretty crazy because you can just deny the ability of something. And last but not least, we have our level 20 class feature, which is going to be Voice of God. Your charisma goes up by 2, which this does not say to a max of 20, and usually in the book it specifies to a max of 20, so I don't know if they intended to allow you to go to 22 with this, or what the thought there was, but nonetheless, with Voice of God, you get 5 ranks of Charmed or Frightened whenever you persuade or intimidate someone as an ability check, which is just insane, by the way. Just crazy. Just crazy that you just persuasion check someone, which your charisma's already going to be high. Like, you're already going to have a stupid charisma. And now if you succeed, you just give them 5 ranks of Charmed or Frightened. That's crazy. The roleplay capabilities of that are actually unfathomable. And the funny thing about this, I think, is the fact that it's specifically a non-combat level 20 feature. Because you really don't see that almost ever. Like, every level 20 combat, or every level 20 feature, rather, typically deals with combat. I don't know if I've seen any of the regular classes, so I really appreciate that. I like that you have this super powerful, like, overwhelming presence and voice of yourself by the time you hit level 20, because you're just such a worshiper of whatever this religion is. But nonetheless, let's get into the juice and talk about our subclasses here. So in order to talk about these guys, I'm not going to go into every single thing it is that they can do, but I'm going to give a base overview of all of them. Not only that, but one thing to remember, and we're going to talk about these after we talk about the actual devotions that you can have, are a lot of these devotions are somewhat dependent on the rituals that you can perform. Because again, right, that's like the main crutch of this thing is performing these rituals during your rests and then being able to be buffed or enhanced in some way into the fight. So, talking about Jashinism Cultist. Now, if you've seen Naruto and you know Hidan, that's what you are. So you have that similar ability to kind of start hurting yourself and hurt others. There's actually some cool support stuff in here as well. where you can kind of take damage from your teammates, or you can kind of like take their blood and just help them out, right? Things like that. So very neat. If you like the idea of kind of absorbing the damage for your teammates or doing things of that nature, which originally I thought was kind of bad, but we'll talk about a ritual here in a little bit that helps that. Also, if you're building towards this, you can kind of, change the way you were doing it, right? So you can kind of convert yourself to having a higher con. You can just do things to buff your health, reduce damage, things of that nature. So nonetheless, super cool concept. It really plays with the idea of the enemies or your allies' blood and kind of converting damage to be how you want it to be. Now getting into our next one here, we got the Otsutsuki Priest, which is from Boruto. If you haven't seen it, well, I have my own opinions that I'm not going to voice right now because I'll get some hate comments. But Otsutsuki are basically gods, okay? They are like the Kaguya. If you've at least seen through Shippuden, that's what the Otsutsuki is. And these guys are worshippers of them. And one of the coolest parts about this class is the level 18 feature that you get, which is the Karma, which if you've seen Boruto, you're going to know what this is. And it works exactly like it. Whenever someone kills you within 30 feet, you can place a karma on them, which is basically a mark that kind of puts your DNA into them, so to speak. That's the easiest way I can explain it. And within 4d4 weeks, you respawn. You basically take over their body and regain just yourself, which is super sick. And besides that, as you can see, it kind of helps your lay on hands feature, like buffs that a little bit. But for the most part, think of it as you're worshiping gods and you gain bonuses against that. And at higher levels, this thing's just insane. I mean, at 18th level, you're just immune against visual genjutsu. That's it. It doesn't matter. It does. Itachi, who megalol. Itachi could never, okay? He's weak sauce compared to this shit right here, okay? And now next up here, we got the Sage Prophet, which if you know Sage Mode from Naruto, it's in a similar vein. It's kind of like a nerfed version since it is just straight up your class. It would be a little busted to have it, but it's more kind of the practice of the religion with nature. I would think of it as something like just a religion that's more attached to kind of the worldly creation, the nature, that kind of aspect. And they have some really cool stuff. You can actually like do really big summons. You can transform into those summons with this guy right here. You get to pick your style, which is really neat. And then the kind of special death feature that this specific one tends to have is that you end up getting to become that sage creature whenever you do die. Now, this would be up to your DM if you get to keep playing as said sage creature, but it at least gives you some cool roleplay. And last but not least, we have the Will of Fire Believer. Now, this one in particular is going to depend on your campaign because you might not use the Will of Fire. If you have read through the Naruto 5e handbook, there's a thing called Will of Fire, in which basically the DM can choose to award points whenever you do really good in roleplay, or maybe your character has like a very cool moment, or you're just like really invested in what you're doing, whatever the case may be. They can give you Will of Fire, which are usually like mini buffs that you can just kind of pop, and you can use them at a moment's notice. This makes those Will of Fire bonuses stronger. That's the general idea. And while this isn't necessarily a religion, but more of a belief, it's being very set into the village hidden in the leaves, right? Like the land of fire, you're very proud of it. You are passing on that Will of Fire down to the next generation, that kind of concept. And as the kind of final one, like we keep talking about, this one, it's kind of cool. Basically, whenever you die, you select a creature that you know, and they gain one of your subclass features other than this one. And so they can gain, any of these subclass features right here. I would imagine you would do a Will of Fire since it's your strongest one. But that's pretty much it. If your campaign doesn't use Will of Fire, then this is useless to you. But if they do, this could be something kind of dope and kind of give you some like cool options that you can work towards. Now we get into the sauce of this stuff, okay? And that's going to be your rituals. Now, like I talked about, there's different rituals. There's short rituals right here, and there's long rituals. Short ones you can do either during a short rest or a long rest. Long you can only do during a long. Now, the important thing to note is if you do a long rest, you can do both a short and long ritual, but you cannot do two short ones. That's important. You can only do one of each style. And they have a bunch of different ones here. The short ones aren't super busted, right? Because you're just doing a short rest, so they can't make them too strong. But they do give some really cool stuff. A lot of them are very dependent as to what subclass you've chosen. So as you can see, like these guys, you select a creature that can hear and see you. If you have at least one Will of Fire when performing this ritual, the selected creature gains a Will of Fire, which is sick. You get to just give them a Will of Fire. Pirai, you gain Chakra Sight. If you're a Jashin, whenever you apply the bleeding condition, it instead gains the lacerated condition. But whenever you gain the bleeding condition, you know, it kind of, you know, following that idea of like their pain is your pain, right? Bunch of different choices. Where it gets real fun are the long rituals. Now, this is important because if you decided to pause and read through the Jashin stuff, if you're like me, you probably would have thought, dang, that doesn't seem very good. Not only that, but it seems super risky. That's why this is important, because the Jashin has Before You Go, which is a 15th level long rest ritual. Long story short, you don't die. As it says, the first time you will die, after 1 hour, you rise from the dead with half of your health and chakra. So clearly the idea here is you can Before You Go every single long rest and not die. I would imagine the way that like a DM could get around this if they're trying to kill your character is they could have someone like fight you once, you come back, so then they like fight you again, but then this time they watch you until you come back alive kind of thing. But that's the idea of the Jashin cult, is you have the ability to be able to come back since you are inflicting pain upon yourself to put it on the enemy. As you can see, there's some really good ones. For a Sage Prophet at 9th level, you just gain resistance to chakra damage or any jutsu feature or trait that tries to absorb your chakra, which is crazy, by the way, because you can just do this every long rest and just be permanently immune to chakra absorption or chakra damage, which is wild. Actually wild. Anyway, some crazy stuff here, right? You and 5 creatures are teleported the moment the long rest ends to a safe place within the Sage tribe domain. So you can kind of, you know, dip out of a bad situation. And there's just a lot of cool concepts that you can see here. Like after a long rest, first time you see an ally gain a Will of Fire, you do so as well. Again, kind of tossing more Will of Fire out there. So this is a lot of the important stuff, or these rituals. I tried to kind of scroll through so you get a chance to read them all. But yeah, it's kind of the main crutch of this class. Now, real quick before I go, I wanted to show the credits. Kings Are Forever, working on it. Zorat working on it. You can find these guys in the Naruto 5e Discord if you want to talk to them about it. There are 2 feats that come with this. They didn't really flesh them out very much, but the idea, polytheism, you gain access to other subclasses rituals, which can be just broken, by the way. And I think this should have some kind of level restriction, because otherwise that's nuts. And then this one they didn't name, but they would like a feat where you can change the time of a ritual from long to short, which you probably would want to take for Jashin people. If every short rest you take, you can respawn yourself after an hour, shit, bro. I mean, you're good. You're set. But nonetheless, that's about it. I just kind of wanted to show you guys this because I found this homebrew and I was like, this is actually sick. I love this. I've been trying in my head to kind of come up with an idea for a class that isn't in the game yet. And one idea I had was some kind of Jashin Cultist thing, and someone beat me to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do want access to this, just go ahead and join our Discord. You can message me, message the general chat. I can provide it to whoever needs it. It's super sick. I highly recommend looking into it. Besides that, if you have any questions, drop them down below in the comments. Hit that sub button if you would. It means a lot. And I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Peace out.